morning and welcome to Morning Movie News, which today falls on the last weekday, the last business day of summer 2015. Yes, we're headed into the Labor Day holiday weekend, which is a 3-day weekend here in the United States. And for those of you who live outside of the United States and aren't familiar with the concept of Labor Day, it basically is the last hurrah for summer before fall begins, and everybody has to dig back in and begin their work in earnest. Now, of course, we've been working all summer, but not so much the last week and a half, and that's been reflected in the movie news cycle. If you live outside the United States and you've wondered why there's really been no movie news, this is why. Because even Hollywood is trying to get in a few last hurrahs. So hopefully we'll see things pick up when everybody returns to work in full, not only in body, but also in mind, on Tuesday. Now, the reason I bring this up, not only because I wish all of you a wonderful Labor Day weekend if you're here in the United States, and just a nice weekend if you're not, it's going to affect Beyond the Trailer programming. So here's the Beyond the Trailer posting schedule. You have this episode of Morning Movie News. Then later today on Beyond the Trailer, there's a big Marvel Civil War episode going up that I've been working on editing in Adobe Premiere. I've been switching over to that editing program. This is a great time to do it because, again, not a lot of stuff to cover. I'm slowly but surely getting the hang of it. That's why there's been I hope you've noticed the difference in quality in the videos visually. And then tomorrow morning on Saturday, I'm going to post my review of the Transporter Refueled, in case you want to see it over the weekend, although it looks like really nobody does. And then programming will return on Tuesday, because again, Monday is holiday, so there will be no morning movie news on Monday, and Movie Math isn't canceled for next week, but is just pushed back a day. So the box office report will go up on Tuesday afternoon. So I just wanted to make sure you knew it was happening and you could plan your own schedule accordingly. And thank you for making Beyond the Trailer a part of your schedule. All right, so let's get on to the last movie news stories of summer 2015. And as I said, we're going to touch on that Marvel Studios developing story, but first, let's talk about another reason everyone's excited for this weekend, at least for today, and that's because today is the Force Friday. Yes, at midnight, the first wave of Star Wars toys went on sale. And it's the first wave because they're trying very hard not to give away any spoilers with the toys for the film. As I'm sure you recall, every time they release toys for, say, a Marvel movie, the Lego sets always give away action sequences, right? You know that these characters are going to be in this setting with these vehicles. And so they're obviously trying to avoid that for Star Wars The Force Awakens, which is good and bad. As I've said with my coverage of Star Wars overall, I feel their ad campaigns on the verge of getting too repetitive because they're really only touching on the same few things again and again and again. Finn, Rey, kind of Poe Dameron, Han Solo, Chewie and the Millennium Falcon, and BB-8. That's really it. That's all we've got. And they're hinting at other elements. You know, Captain Phasma is getting a lot of play as well. But that's really it. And Kylo Ren, of course, but not quite as much as I think we would like. But anyway, a new wave of toys will be coming out. I think there's actually even 3 waves of toys, but a new wave of toys will come out when the film is released, which includes spoilers. So save some of your money, because there's more to come. But anyway, I got tweets from some of you that you were attending midnight openings of stores, you know, everything from Toys R Us to Walmart to Target to the Disney store. And so I'm curious, for those of you who did go last night, did you get anything? What did you get? I know some of you got free posters with Kylo Ren on them that look pretty awesome in my opinion. Thank you for tweeting me a picture of it. They look amazing. But I looked over the merchandise this morning. I got a ton of emails about it, particularly from the Disney store. Oh, and by the way, if you're thinking of buying anything, the Disney store, as they let me know, is offering free shipping on any order that just includes a Star Wars toy. So you can buy other stuff, but as long as you throw a Star Wars toy in there, you're getting free shipping. I think it only is through tomorrow, or maybe even through only today. But they really want to push that you buy toys today. And they've done a lot of initiatives here on YouTube through Maker Studios, which is the Disney-owned multi-channel network, MCN. And also on the morning talk shows. They've had toys everywhere. They're like, go buy toys. And it'll be interesting to see over the holiday weekend how many people do. I'm going to go to the Disney store tomorrow, and I'm going to maybe see if I want to pick something up, not only to have, but to potentially wear to the movie when it opens all the way in December. Yes, it's a long ways away, in a movie theater far, far away. But I did go over the toys, so I wanted to talk to them a little bit and get your guys' reaction to this first wave. Now, because we don't really know anything about the characters, they have to showcase a lot of the older characters as well. But because I don't know anything about the new characters, it's hard for me to be excited about their toys, right? I'm like, I don't know anything about this character, so I don't know if I want their action figure. I mean, if you're going to be buying the toys, I think you're going to be buying it for really just two reasons. One, you're super into Star Wars and you want the merchandise, and you always have been, and you would buy these toys no matter what they were of. And two, you're excited about the diversity of the film. Because again, that's really the only thing they're promoting right now, right? They're like, oh, look who's finally in a Star Wars movie in a lead role. We've got John Boyega as Finn. We have lots of, not lots, but we have some Rey action figures. So, those of you who wanted a Black Widow action figure, we've got female action figures over here at Star Wars. So I can only see really fandom for Star Wars and, like tokenism and wanting to support that being the reason that people go and buy these toys. So I'm curious, what went through your mind when you were deciding what to purchase? How did you decide what to buy, considering you know nothing about this movie or the characters that are in front of you? So because of that, I really gravitated, in what I've seen so far, toward the older style merchandise. Like, I really like Stormtroopers, as does anyone with a beating heart. So I liked a lot of the Stormtrooper merchandise. They have one shirt in particular I have my eye on, which is this graphic of a Stormtrooper with the image kind of being blown away as if it's made out of sand. And I was like, that's pretty cool. I also like the Kylo Ren stuff. I think his lightsaber looks awesome. But as I noted with the very first teaser trailer, it plays off of medieval imagery of the sword being the cross. So I looked at this t-shirt online, and it was, Kylo Ren's lightsaber in the dark, so it's really just his lightsaber. And I was like, you're basically asking me to wear a giant glowing red cross around. That's maybe a little bit more religious than I'd care to get. But that for some people that might be a huge selling point. We'll see. So I'm curious. I'm just really interested to know what everybody's reactions were what they are during the weekend as you go into the stores to at least look at these toys. What do you think? What do you gravitate towards? Do you think Disney's doing a good job? But it's a very interesting situation to see, Disney do such a different ad campaign from the trailers to the posters to the toys than Marvel does with their films, and they're of course also from Disney. So let's segue over to that. Oh, and by the way, I also wanted to point out that BTT viewer Grace Moreira, also named Grace, another Grace, she said that she was glad there was a female figure, but that she felt that Rey was paired with BB-8 to help the action figure sell because it was a girl toy. And hey, you know what? I don't know if that's true or not, but at least, I can't blame for Disney Hasbro for wanting to have a little bit of a safety net there. And if it, makes more female action figures, sure, we'll buy it with the BB-8 and probably the little bit of an extra price. But what everybody was really excited about was the actual BB-8, the little mini BB-8 you can buy that you can control by remote from your phone, your smartphone. So I thought that trended yesterday on Twitter, but the Force Friday, last I checked, has not trended on Twitter. And you would think at least in the morning it would be trending. So I'm sure Disney PR is like, that's problematic. How did we mess that up? All right, so let's move over to that developing story behind the scenes at Marvel Studios. Now, as we've been discussing, Kevin Feige cut away Isaac Perlmutter, who's the former owner of Marvel, still the head of Marvel, sold it to Disney, of course, famously now at this point. But Kevin Feige made huge headlines when he broke free, and instead of having to report to Perlmutter, now reports to Alan Horn, who runs all of Disney Pictures. And then, days later, or the next day basically, he dissolved the creative committee, which was a number of important people over at Marvel Comics, like Joe Quesada, Dan Buckley, Alan Fine, etc., and dissolved that, and so they no longer had any influence over the movies as well. And a number of stories started to come out talking about how it was Isaac Perlmutter who just said there were no Black Widow toys, and how the creative committee was the one that ticked off Edgar Wright, etc., etc. Now, an interesting story is developing even beyond this, and that's to why Kevin Feige was able to convince Disney to allow him to break free. So Bleeding Cool ran a story late yesterday that said it was because of disappointment in the Avengers. That Feige, whether or not he believed it in his heart, sold it to Disney as a loss of ground. Lower box office. Did not top it at the worldwide box office. It was overshadowed by Jurassic World. But also the critical response and the audience response was significantly lower. And I'm sure some of you will, try to say that's not true. But when you look at the Rotten Tomatoes score, it's pretty damning, right? I know a number of you like to use Rotten Tomatoes. You use it against me all the time. So let's go to it here. And I'm sure Kevin Feige could go to Alan Horn and Bob Iger at Disney. Bob Iger runs all of Disney, and could say, hey, 92% Rotten Tomatoes score for the Avengers, 74% for Avengers Age of Ultron. There's a problem. Please let me fix it before we get too broken, and Warner Brothers just completely destroys us. And I do think there's still a very strong chance that Warner Brothers will win 2016 because of their 1-2 punch of Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, and of course Suicide Squad. I also think Fox looks very strong as well next year with Deadpool, X-Men Apocalypse, and Gambit. What do they have at Marvel? They have Captain America Civil War, which we have a lot of question marks about, and then also they have Doctor Strange, which we have even more question marks about. So we'll see what happens. But anyway, I'm not saying that Kevin Feige himself believes that Avengers of Age of Ultron was a failure, but I think there's a case to be made for it. I've reported that I feel that it's a step back for the studio, and I think that that's, and Bleeding Cool said this is what he used to convince Disney to let him have autonomy from the rest of Marvel and quote-unquote New York, because that's where Marvel Comics is based, and all these people on the creative committee and Isaac Perlmutter. Now, some people are calling into question the authenticity of the Bleeding Cool report, but I would like to point out that Bleeding Cool called the Josh Trank Fantastic Four problem months in advance when it was actually happening, and Fox said that was not true, and they had every bit of confidence in Josh Trank, and we're not trying to replace him at the last minute. But then, of course, we all learned when the movie hit the fan, basically, that was not the case, and that Bleeding Cool had been correct all along. So I think Bleeding Cool. I've worked with Bleeding Cool. I know the people there very well. I trust their reporting. They're very, very good, and the reason they've been around for so long is because they're not like certain El Maebi, and that they just make stuff up to get clicks. They have actual genuine sources. And it's interesting, actually, a lot of times people will rat stuff out to Bleeding Cool to, get some kind of justice in their corporate environment. They're like, I can do nothing about this. I can at least leak the story. So he has a pretty good setup there, and the result is he has very effective and, I think, truthful stories. But Marvel doesn't want that story out there that Avengers Age of Ultron is a flop, right? They don't want everybody to think they're disappointed in it. So what they're doing is they're doing damage control, and they're floating a story that says the real problem and what really got Kevin Feige to break free wasn't any disappointment in Avengers Age of Ultron, but because Civil War basically is too awesome. That's the story they're running, that the budget is much higher than Isaac Perlmutter would have wanted, and that for some reason the creative committee had a say on budget, and they were upset about how expensive it was, and so that's why they were able to break free. And that's a much better reason to have some discord behind the scenes, right? These people are wet blankets, they're holding back Civil War, so that's why we had to get rid of them. Not like they messed up something we've already done, and we want to, cut the cord before any more damage is done. So I believe the Bleeding Cool story, and I think that it's a little bit ridiculous that Isaac Perlmutter would have such a problem with the budget at this late in the game, right? Like, the movie's already shot. Why would a budgetary issue come up now, right? It doesn't make any sense. I think it's not something that's a point of contention at the moment. Whereas looking back at the summer box office is, as we're going to discuss in our third story. So I believe the Bleeding Cool story, and I think that the Hollywood Reporter exclusive is something I think is damage control and a spin that Marvel fed them. But I'm curious to what you think. What do you think is the reason? How do you feel as this settles in, this news that the comics have been separated, the comics and the TV shows have been separated from the movies, and I hope that Kevin Feige, I think that this is a double-edged sword. I think he has the chance to prove himself and really maybe make some major changes and combat the problems that we're starting to have with the MCU, but at the same time, now he has no one else to blame. It's all going to fall on him. So we'll see what happens. All right, so what am I talking about with looking back at summer, right? Well, it's time for reflection. And another interesting story they had in the Hollywood Reporter was that Hollywood is starting to lose faith in two things: tracking, seeing how a movie is going to open, which is, the industry's best guess, and then also pre-screening movies for the public. Why is this happening? Well, they had a really big problem this summer where a lot of movies didn't perform as expected or performed way better than expected. And they said that word of mouth has gotten out of control, that Hollywood can no longer control buzz for a film, thanks to the immediacy of social media. So their feeling is that movies that had really bad buzz, like Fantastic Four, Terminator Genesis, etc., those films weren't able to open as predicted because they were killed off almost immediately because people were able to spread the word about how awful these movies were in advance. And also, Rotten Tomatoes has become very prevalent. The Rotten Tomatoes score isn't something that just fanboys pay attention to anymore, but the general public as well. So if a movie has a horrible Rotten Tomatoes score, even your average mainstream moviegoer will decide not to go and see it because of that, instead of, having faith in the system, in the studio. So what they want to do is, they're teasing the idea of not having any more pre-screenings, testing a movie so much for audiences or to get hype, to build hype, because sometimes it backfires, where people see the movie in advance and they're like, whoa, that was awful, let me tweet about it. Because while they can embargo the press, often when I go to a press screening, I have to sign a piece of paper that says I will not even tweet about this movie until said date at said time. They're very, very strict with the press. But of course, if we don't cooperate, they can bar us from future press screenings. And also we've signed a document. But when they have these screenings for the general public to try and build buzz, you have nothing that you've got on the general public. What are you going to do about it? There's nothing you can do. You can't control it. Now, the idea is that the general public would see these movies and go, they're amazing, let me tweet about it. But that's not happening. So I think that's not only going to affect pre-screenings, but I also think it's going to have a very serious effect potentially on advanced overseas releases. For instance, Marvel loves to release movies overseas a week to 2 weeks in advance, but that really hurt them with Age of Ultron because the buzz came out here in the US from our friends overseas that the movie was not as good as the first Avengers, and a number of people were just downright disappointed in it. So I think that you're going to see maybe that come to an end as well. But Hollywood is aware that the old way doesn't work, and they're seeing what they can do to combat it. All right, so those are the 3 stories of the day. I was going to talk about the Steven Spielberg situation. I will address that on Tuesday, because I don't think anything's going to happen over the weekend. Steven Spielberg and what's going on with him and the comments he made about the blockbuster, etc. But I do want to include a viewer question, especially because I didn't yesterday, and this one comes from Scott Lehrer. And Scott says, "Hi, I have a question. I remember when the BVS teaser came out and people said it would run before Mad Max Fury Road. I went to the film and loved it, but the trailer was not there. To further my confusion, Man from U.N.C.L.E., which shares a star, and Warner Brothers, did not have a BVS trailer. Henry Cavill, he is in both Man from U.N.C.L.E. and Batman v Superman. So Scott says, are theaters told which trailers must run before the film, or did Showcase, that's the theater he attended, just make a mistake, or they can show the trailers they want, or am I just looking too far into this? Thanks for making these great videos on a daily basis, and I would love to see this covered." Thank you for your question, Scott. Wish granted. Great question. So allow me to answer. So yes, when a studio has a hot trailer, they will often attach it to a movie to get people to go. This isn't quite as prevalent as it once was because now people see trailers on the internet. It used to be that if you wanted to see a movie trailer, you had to go to the theater. So that was a way to get you to buy a ticket to see a movie. But now that's not so much the case. So they try and use it maybe a little bit to build buzz, especially if something's related to another franchise, right? Or they're in the same MCU, or not MCU. Everything's in the same MCU. If they're in the same cinematic universe. So that's one reason that you would do it. Although I have, for instance, Interstellar, they debuted that trailer, I believe, in front of The Hobbit, before they debuted it online. But they didn't really tell anyone they were going to do that, so it wasn't effective in getting anyone to buy a ticket. But that was a very interesting case. But yes, sometimes they do attach trailers to movies. I think the big thing now isn't so much to sell tickets, but they know a lot of people will see a movie, so they want a lot of people to see the trailer. So they release the trailer to play in front of it. Now, the only way that you can guarantee that a trailer will play in front of a movie is to attach it to the actual print, or in this case, the DVD. So sometimes a studio will do that. Especially you'll see that happen if it plays right before the movie starts, because they're on the same reel. But overall, they go to the different theaters, and then they're put together by the theater. If a new trailer is released, it often will play with a movie. For instance, when an animated movie comes out, like for instance when Inside Out came out, a ton of animated trailers came out alongside with it. Same with Minions, right? Family movie trailers will debut because they want to play in front of that big movie. So it's not so much right now studio-based as genre-based. Now, as for the reason that a Batman v Superman trailer wouldn't play in front of Man from U.N.C.L.E. is because that's just too small a movie. They know that Batman v Superman is a major trailer, and I think they know that Man from U.N.C.L.E. wasn't going to be a huge hit. I think they didn't know it was going to be as colossal a failure as it was, but they knew it wasn't going to be big. So you don't want to waste the Batman v Superman trailer on that. You don't want it playing to a theater which isn't totally full, right? I mean, that's kind of embarrassing and hurts Batman v Superman. And especially you don't need it to play in front of the Man from U.N.C.L.E. because it's already playing online to millions and millions of people. So it's really to get it in front of eyeballs, and also to ride the coattails of the prestige of another film. That's another reason. Like, oh, Interstellar is like The Hobbit, etc., etc. Like, they're on the same level. So if you saw The Hobbit, you should see Interstellar. So it's really for an image. You know, it's like sitting at the cool table. Is your trailer sitting at the cool table? And the coolest, meanest girl at the moment is whatever hot movie is there. So that's why it wouldn't play in front of Man from U.N.C.L.E. Instead, you're going to get things that Hollywood feels are similar to, that would appeal to that audience. So that's my answer to your question. As far as Mad Max Fury Road, I think, we suspect it sometimes to play in front of there, but I think, again, because these things break on the internet, and a lot of times the Batman v Superman stuff, I think almost always breaks with Comic-Con, that's the event where the trailer is linked. They don't need to play it in theaters. I don't know if the Batman v Superman trailer has even played in theaters, actually, to my knowledge. I don't recall seeing it. I think so far it's only been on the internet, but I think that will change, of course, during the holiday season, because it's coming out in March, which is actually getting pretty close, so that's very exciting. But to answer your question, Scott, don't think studio so much, but think genre and also the size of the movie. Is it a big deal? And if it's a big deal, then everyone's going to be fighting to get their trailer in front of it. All right, so that's my answer to your question, Scott. Thank you so much. Showcase Cinemas, that's cool. It's a theater chain in the middle of the country, and when I visit relatives in Pittsburgh, I sometimes go to Showcase Cinema, so you brought back some nice memories there by mentioning it. But anyway, I hope everyone has a wonderful Labor Day weekend. Look for those other episodes that I mentioned, both today and tomorrow and Beyond the Trailer, and I'll see you back here on Movie Math, BTT Movie Math on Tuesday. All right, thanks for watching. Bye.